Hello and welcome back to me attempting to recreate the World of Warcraft in The Sims 4. And let me tell you, this was a more challenging build than the last one. Thought that Dalron was going to be hard, but building a Dwarven enclosure was both harder and easier than I thought. First of all, this is probably one of my favorite inns in the entire World of Warcraft. I absolutely love Kirthhaven. If you've never been there, it is a really awesome little Wildhammer Dwarven town in the Twilight Highlands. And it's really cozy. And it just seems like it would be the perfect place to live. It kind of gives off a lot of the cozy vibes that a lot of the Dwarven towns have, but mixed with a little bit of Hobbiton, which is honestly right up my alley. So I figured I would at least give it a try and attempt to make it in The Sims. To start off with, I knew that it wasn't going to be a 1-to-1 ratio in The Sims. There are a lot of things that you can do with actual art that you can't do in The Sims 4. But you know what? I figured I'd give it my best try, and I really wanted to nail the look when you walk into the inn of the staircase that just goes straight down off the door. That was one of the harder things to do, but I eventually figured it out. I did end up putting two kind of just blank, useless rooms into the back of the inn. I finished them up with like half walls and ended up just raising the platform so that they would stay up all the time when you're playing in there. That being said, I have not playtested this build. I'm pretty sure it's functional, and I'm also almost completely positive that I did not include any custom content in it. If I did, and if you would like to add this build to your own game, all you really have to do is search up my EA ID, which is really easy. It's just CSTI, no capital letters at all, and just add the filter of custom content. I do a good mix of both CC and non-CC builds. I even have a few that are just plain old base game builds, and those sometimes are the most challenging because I've got a lot of packs at this point, and whenever I'm doing a base game build, I'm like, oh, I just want to use this from this pack, but I can't. I also really wanted to make sure that the roof was right, and to do that I had to put a fictional second story in there. I also realized that when you go into the Kirthhaven Inn, you can't actually see out the windows that are there, but there are windows in the building, and so I was like, you know what, we're just going to put them there. I also really wanted to do a thicker, like, decorative bit on the front of the build, which I could not find anything that matched it until I went into the debug item and just built it myself. I ended up putting a couple of lights back there, which kind of look cool when it's nighttime. I started off with these red ones, but I just really didn't like the vibe, so I ended up putting these great big ones back there. And I'm really kind of happy with how they turned out. Then I had to figure out an awning, which I ended up just shrinking one down. I was going to use the one from Island Living, and then just kind of said, nah. So overall, I'm mostly happy with how this turned out. I'm going for more, as always, the feeling of World of Warcraft, since we can't exactly get a 1-to-1 ratio. So the biggest thing I noticed in the difference between The Sims and World of Warcraft is, I can find some decorative knives. I can even find some decorative swords, but you cannot find a single decorative gun in all of the Sims games. Unsurprising, I guess, but still, I was like, well, I'm gonna put some sort of weaponry on the wall, so I just ended up putting the kitchen knives there and calling it good. I also wanted to make sure that the big, heavy crossbeams were included, because that's something I always notice when I go into this build. So I ended up just putting in spandrels kinda everywhere, and it's a blessing and a curse. Aesthetically, it looks beautiful, but spandrels, if you're playing, I would definitely play with this with the walls down. Otherwise, you're just going to be seeing spandrels everywhere. That being said, I don't hate this build. I'm actually really pleased with the way it turned out. I mean, I think, if nothing else, I captured the cozy vibes. I'm hoping that I can do some more of these World of Warcraft builds. If you have anything that you would like to see me attempt to build, drop it into the comments down below. There are so many different build styles in World of Warcraft, and I feel like I've hardly scratched any of them. I mean, this is a Wildhammer Dwarven inn, but maybe I have enough guts to try a regular Dwarven build. Maybe one of the ones from Theslamar or Lochmadan. There are a lot of really nice Dwarven buildings. And then, of course, I was flying around in WoW the other day, just kind of eyeballing the Night Elven inns, because those could also be a lot of fun to do. I think, if nothing else, this stretches my abilities as a builder, and that's kind of fun. I also end up replacing that wall with a debug wall towards the end of the build, because I found something that I think just looks so much nicer. I also was putting in just a planter box, because there are so many flowers and things around in Kirthhaven. And then I remembered it wasn't actually a planter box, it was a fountain, so I ended up doing that. So the biggest thing I wanted to nail was just the cozy vibes downstairs. And I ended up doing that with, again, a lot of spandrels. To make this build more functional for actually playing The Sims, I put those 2 rooms towards the back. And I actually end up making a very small kitchen and a very small communal bathroom back there. Just in case you want to download this and actually have some Sims have some place to stay. Everything that I'm building for the World of Warcraft stuff, I am building just as generic lots. So if you download them, you can probably just change the designation. I didn't want to put anything in as a bar or anything, because then it would be considered an incomplete build, and there's no actual rules to building a generic build. I have heard, though, that if you load in a generic build, NPCs will not spawn on it, so that's something you want to keep in mind. You might want to actually change a few things if you choose to download this build. Pretty much, other than decorating, that's about it. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I had most of the things that were in the downstairs area of the Kirthhaven Inn, and I think for the most part I did. Like I said, I add in a bathroom and a very, very tiny kitchen. I'm not sure that I would want to cook in a very kitchen that's as small as the one I made. Saying that, I just happened to turn and look at my actual kitchen, and it's pretty much about the size of the kitchen I build in here. So yeah, I lit it mostly with candlelight. I kind of wish that The Sims had flickering wall torches, but without custom content that isn't in any of the packs that I can think of. So I just did 2 little toilet stalls in the back, gave them each a door, that way anybody can use it. pretty simple, just a toilet and a box basically. 3 showers and a nice little sink area, big old mirror. I mean, why not? If you're going to be here, let your Sims live a little bit at least. I also didn't find any beds that really match that whole Dwarven rock bed aesthetic, so I just put in something that was sort of dark and somber looking and fit the whole vibe. So yeah, I think the only place that I kept a actual just big ceiling light is in the kitchen. I completely forgot to replace and put something a little more appropriate in. So again, if you download it, you could always just change that into some nice hanging candelabra or something. Something that kind of feels a bit more dwarfy. And then, of course, the final step is fixing up the terrain and putting in the last few things. I used a whole lot of debug in here and a lot of fiddling around with the terrain, but in the end I feel like it came out kinda okay. I'm pretty darn happy with the way this turned out. Now, of course, I did also think a little while ago that what would be perfect is if I had put some debugged chickens around in here. They aren't quite the Wildhammer griffins that you'll find running around in Kirthhaven, but hey, they could be a lot of fun. So yeah, as always, we will be doing a walkthrough towards the end of this, and I'm going to flash up on the screen before the walkthrough just my EA ID. If you would like to download this build or anything like that, it's just CSTI, no capital letters at all. Everything that I've built that I've considered worthy of uploading is in my gallery, and, you know, if you'd like, go ahead, grab it. I know there are a few people that are trying to do World of Warcraft builds. I know I'm not the only one, so leave me any tips or tricks or anything that you've found that kind of looks a little bit more World of Warcraft in this game. Digging through the debug items in the debug menu is time consuming, but sometimes you find some real gems and treasures down there. Anyway, that is pretty much everything. I'm just putting a few more clutter items. I know that the inn at Kirthhaven doesn't really have much in that front room, and it just felt too darn empty. So I ended up putting a little wine cask, a few kegs, a little lantern, a couple little things, just to make it look a little bit more lived in. Anyway, thank you so much. Please do leave me a thumbs up if you don't mind. It does always make me smile, and I will see you probably next week with another build. If you have any suggestions of World of Warcraft styles that you would like to see another inn done in, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will see you later.